Hidden Object Guru here with a look at some games I recently sampled. As always, these are scored out of 10 based on how interested I am in playing more. First up, we have Oxygen First Breath. This city builder demo has a bit of a unique setting and premise. The world has been nearly destroyed by a fracturing of the tectonic plates, burning off the vast majority of the atmosphere. The player is put in charge of one of the world's last surviving communities. And it's their job to power up an oxygen generator and build up their base by gathering resources from the abandoned buildings of a broken world. Players have a set amount of workers available, and the game's main focus is making sure that they're doing the most efficient job possible at any given moment. They have to gather food, build structures, research technologies, and eventually go looking for other survivors. All while dealing with the ever-present threat of gas explosions caused by the continuing destruction of the environment. The demo only offers a limited section of the oxygen experience, but it's managed to make me extremely optimistic about the full game next year. 8 out of 10. Island. Traps and Treasures. It's a Sokoban game mixed with a tiny bit of Minesweeper. Cute, fun, with devilishly complex levels that drove me near to madness as I struggled to get even a dozen levels into the game. While it doesn't have a hint system and might therefore prove alienating to more casual players, its interesting complications on the block-pushing genre make it worth a look for anyone with even a minor fondness for this style of game. It's not entirely player-unfriendly, though. There's an undo button that can be used an unlimited number of times, giving players the ability to go back and retry their moves as many times as they like. 5 out of 10. Eyes in the Dark. As delightful as a 2D roguelite shooter can possibly be, Eyes in the Dark was a pleasure from beginning to end. The art, which is built around a Gashly Crumb Tinies vibe, has so much detail that it's impossible not to smile while working one's way through the various rooms of Bloom Mansion. There's a huge variety of shadow-themed enemies, 10 bosses, each offering a unique experience in their encounters, and an enormous amount of upgrades and mutators to unlock. While the bosses in most of the rooms are always the same, Eyes in the Dark guarantees that each run is unique by forcing the player to select from a randomized pairing of upgrades and penalties after each boss fight. So by the end of their trip through the house, they'll be laden down with a wide set of strange abilities. Cute writing, great gameplay, and fantastic replayability make this a truly special experience. To see the final ending, players have to complete it 10 times over using different preset mutators, not unlike the list of games in The Binding of Isaac. And while I didn't do all of that, I did finish off the final boss, which means that this gets an I beat it out of 10. Scarlet Tower. It seems I've gotten into this whole Vampire Survivors genre at exactly the right time, as there's plenty of new ones dropping seemingly every week. This one attempts to add some extra RPG-light elements into the formula, giving the characters special abilities to unlock in addition to the huge number of weapons. Unfortunately, this early access game is too unbalanced to recommend at the moment. The entire game flow of this genre is built around dodging enemies while gradually winnowing down their numbers. For some reason, though, the developers decided to pack the maps so completely full of obstacles that moving around is a nightmarish chore. Being able to dodge is all well and good, but what does it matter if I keep getting hung up on trees? Likewise, the game is so incredibly stingy that it's possible, even likely, the players will play through multiple runs without ever earning enough gold to buy even a single upgrade. Luckily, the developers are tweaking the balance every couple of days, so I'm hopeful that it will soon capture some of the magic that Vampire Survivors offers. 5 out of 10. Super Total Carnage. Speaking of Vampire Survivors likes, this one is unusually close to its inspiration, right down to featuring extremely similar monsters and a close graphical style. The game is themed more around religion than Survivors is, with Baphomet as the final boss and constant references to holy Catholic relics. There's a good balance of powers and characters, but a few things hold it back from challenging Vampire Survivors just yet. Most notable among these is the game's frustrating obliqueness when it comes to letting the player know how to unlock weapons. And even if players manage to get a weapon combo going by having the fully upgraded weapon and correct utility to complement it, the game doesn't bother letting the player know which utility was responsible for that upgrade. forcing the player to take their own notes based on guesses. Hopefully future updates make the game a little more player-friendly so I can justify coming back and completing it the way I did with Vampire Survivors. 4 out of 10. One True Hero. This indie action RPG wants to capture those 3D Zelda vibes, but in a parody setting, which is a fun thing to aspire to, but the gameplay just isn't there. The too big and empty feeling levels are a chore to run through, the platforming and clambering is awkward as hell, and the combat is a complete write-off. Seriously, it's hard to explain just how frustrating I found the combat in the game. Slow, clumsy, with enemies that have far too much health and far too little reaction to injury. Whether the overall story is satirical or not, the gameplay has to be engaging to justify completing a game like this, and the One True Heroes simply isn't. 3 out of 10. Falling Out. Whenever I make a list of my favorite games of all time, Spelunky gets the number 2 spot easily. So obviously I'm excited whenever someone goes out of their way to crib from that seminal classic. Falling Out's twist is that it's co-op focused, with 2 players each coordinating one half of a husband and wife team as they go on a second honeymoon, trying to escape a curse in an Egyptian labyrinth. The controls are magnificent, character switching works great when playing solo, and the upgrade system for equipment is an interesting complication in the formula. It doesn't have Spelunky's perfect balance. What game could? But definitely worth the player's time. 6 out of 10. Succubus with guns. Even for a super basic arena shooter, this leaves a ton to be desired. The premise is pretty simple. Humans tried to summon a demon, screwed up their ceremony and got turned into zombies, and now a succubus has to go and shoot them all before she can go home to her seriously comfortable looking bed. The combat is weightless and repetitive, with guns and swords barely registering impacts on enemies. If that weren't bad enough, at one point I glitched through a bridge and wound up trapped in a spike pit, causing me to fail a level. While the game tries its best to offer something to keep the player interested, both the main character and about 70% of the zombies are ludicrously busty, for example. The gameplay is just too janky for me to recommend this to anybody. 2 out of 10. Police Simulator. Patrol Officers. This walking a beat simulator has now made the jump from PC to consoles, and it's every bit as chill and satisfying there as it was on PC. If someone had told me that a game where you play as a cop would be a go-to chill game for me, I would have thought they were crazy. But here we are, striding down the streets, checking license plates to see if they've expired, and calling in a tow truck when someone is parked in front of a fire hydrant. It's all oddly relaxing. I was especially charmed by the way the game gives players the chance for pleasant interactions with citizens, as they frequently ask cops for directions to local points of interest. There's a twist though. Players don't start out already knowing where everything in their neighborhood is, creating motivation to explore the town for themselves, letting them get to know the fictional space, as well as their own part of town. I'm sure that things will get a little more hectic later on as I start driving around and having to decide whether or not to shoot people, but I'm enjoying just being a traffic cop so much that I'm willing to keep playing until I get there. 8 out of 10. Kartoffel. It's so cute that it almost hurts to look at, and the puzzles are pretty good too. Players have to see that a series of animated potatoes make their way from one end of the map to the other, picking up bonus stars along the way. Why bonus stars? Because they're there, of course. This is an all-ages kind of romp, a puzzle game that almost anyone can pick up and fully understand in just moments. The gameplay is simple as can be. Just look over the level, and then use a series of hovering blocks to plan out the Spud's path through it. There's 60 levels to puzzle out, and while just completing the first 20 didn't prove too mentally taxing, anyone looking to nab all of the stars in each one will find themselves having to master the art of quickly swapping out blocks, as well as creating holding areas where the beasts bounce back and forth until the player can get to the next step of their journey. It's basic fun, and I'm very excited to see what kind of new challenges the rest of the game has to offer me. 8 out of 10. I've been the Hidden Object Guru, thanks for watching. I'll see you back here once I've played a few more games, but until then I'll say that's right, au revoir.